VIP access group. Let's go ahead and get started. So in this presentation, we are going to review self-publishing versus traditional publishing, why branding is important, copyrights and trademarks, and then we'll open it up for Q&A discussion. Now, a little bit about BWA, what we do. We amplify and uplift Black voices. So we provide marketing and support tools for author success. Now, what is publishing? Publishing is the process of producing and distributing content for public consumption. It involves editing, printing, designing, and distributing books or media. Understanding publishing, traditional publishing versus self-publishing. So by show of hands, who is a self-publisher, or is anyone in here in this group self-published? Dr. Gracie, are you self-published?
No, I'm not traditional.
You're traditional published. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Now, traditional publishing is when you work with an established publishing company, the publisher handles the editing, the cover design, printing, distribution, and marketing. Now, the pros of having a traditional publishing house to take care of your book is they provide professional editing. They design your book covers. They market your book. Usually there's no upfront cost, but I would argue that when a publisher reached out to me, there were upfront costs, $1,500. Now, they also offer broader distribution and industry credibility. What that means is, okay, so what does that mean? Every publisher works at being credible so that when they pull authors into their network, they are creating a hub similar to BWA. We are creating a hub for authors to come in, but however, we are self-published. So we have the control over our magazine. In the case of an author, that publisher will distribute your book. You're depending on their credibility in the industry to promote your book. So the major benefit to this, expert support with lower control. So you don't have as much control over your book as you would if you were a self-publisher. Now, the self-publishing pros and cons are you write your book, you edit your book, you publish your book, and you market your book. So you pretty much do everything and you're in control of everything. Now, the pros to that is you have full creative control. Sometimes on the traditional publishing side, the publisher will provide support or ideas or suggestions on how they feel you should market your book. Now, another pro for self-publishers, it's faster to market because you're in control. You make the decision and you're not in a line of other authors that are waiting to be serviced by that publisher. You actually will get a faster turnaround with the production of your book. In addition to that, you will retain higher royalty rates. Your flexibility to update your content. For example, you wrote your book, it's published, it's on Amazon, but you realize you forgot something that you wanted to add into the book. So you would then have to go to your publisher and request for them to create that update and upload it and republish your book versus you doing it yourself. Now, self-publishing basically empowers authors to own their own journey. And traditional publishing equals professional support, lower control. So it's not to say that you as a self-published author are not professional. When you purchase a service from a company, you are purchasing professionals. Let's say, hopefully they're professionals, they're expert in what they do, and you're handing over everything to them. Now, the cons of self-publishing are there are going to be a number of upfront costs for you. Business and marketing is your responsibility. You may have limited bookstore access. And I only say that because you're in control of that. So you can increase your bookstore access, meaning your books can appear in other entities, Walmart, Target, all of those stores. However, you have to lead up that marketing campaign. Now, all the success of your book as a self-published author depends on you, your time, your money, the demands of being a self-published author versus traditional publishing, again, is lower control. So you gain more control as a self-published author. You have all the control, but you have limited control when you go the traditional route. Next, we're going to talk about rights. Now, what are rights? Rights refer to legal permissions regarding how a book can be used, reproduced, or sold. So when you write your book, you have a right of ownership. Now, the type of rights as it relates to authors are you have printing rights for your book, your physical books. You have digital rights for your ebooks and audiobooks. You have translation rights if you want your book to be in another language. You have movie and TV adaptation rights if you want your book to appear as a miniseries or a movie. And last but not least, you have international rights. So if you want your book sold in Dubai or somewhere like in Greece, wherever, you can negotiate rights with those countries for them to sell your book at a price. So you can turn over the right of your book and sell it to someone in another country. And they will cut you a check or promote it. Now, rights define who can do what with your book. So if you sign your rights over, then essentially your book belongs to the person you sign it over to. You're giving them permission. So in traditional publishing, publishers often acquire rights to print, distribute, or adapt the book. In self-publishing, the author retains these rights. So unless you license them out. So if you are a self-published author, you can contract with other entities and give them permission to promote your book, to create it as a movie, that type of thing. That is your choice. When you publish a book, you're not just sharing your words. You're granting specific rights to a publisher, a distributor, or a third party. These rights determine who can produce, reproduce, sell, adapt your work. So in traditional publishing, again, the publisher often they acquire certain rights. So for traditional publishing, they have the print and digital right to promote Dr. Gracie's book. Okay. In exchange for publishing your book. So maybe they will cut a deal with you and they'll say, okay, if there's no money up front, we will do this work for you. However, we are going to retain a percentage of your royalties. And so there's some sort of an agreement that you make with that publisher. And anytime that you are contracting a license or a right, you definitely want to make sure, if you don't understand the language, that you have a legal professional that can explain that language to you so that you don't sign over your everything, your rights, the way you understand it. So you want to make sure that you understand exactly what rights you're giving anybody, for that matter. This is given to, okay, copyrights. Now, copyrights protect the original work of authorship. So your books, your art, your music applies to copyrights. People often say, I don't know which to do. I don't know if I need to copyright my book or if I need a trademark. So copyright guards your book's content from being copied without permission. So if you're asking the question, should I copyright my book? Yes, especially if you are going to sell rights. You want your book copyrighted so that if you send your book to a Mr. Producer or Mr. Tyler Perry, your book, you own your book. And so he now has to contract with you to get rights to turn your book into a movie, and you have to agree to it. If you don't have a copyright on your book and you give your book to Mr. Perry or anyone else, guess what? They can take your book, create a movie, and leave you out of it. You get nothing. So you don't want that. Copywriting is protecting your book, especially if you're planning to go, take it to other levels. If you want it on the big screen, you definitely want to protect yourself. Trademarks are brand identifiers. And what that means is they are your logos. Everything that identifies your brand. So for example, every vehicle has a logo. BMW, when you see that logo, you know it's BMW. Okay, those are trademarks. Names, logos, and slogans used in commerce. So I'm trying to think, what's a slogan? Safe Light. I'll use that as an example. So, okay, Safe Light is that window, if you break your window on your car, you call Safe Light. And they have a song, Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace. That's their slogan. So I'm sure that they've trademarked that because so that no other window company can use that. That's their thing. Popeye Chicken. Love that chicken at Popeyes. That's a slogan. So in addition to their name, their logo, they have that. Anytime you hear that song, you know it's Popeye Chicken. It's not KFC or any of those other ones. Okay, makes sense? Okay, so trademarks, again, protect your names, your symbols that represent your brand in the marketplace. Now, I'm going to turn this over for questions. Let's have a discussion. And I'll unmute everyone. Or I'll ask you all to unmute. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, this is Dr. McCaslер. My question is, I received a letter from a company and they wanted to turn my book into a movie, and they offered a lot of upfront money, but I wasn't sure as to whether I was turning over my total rights to them and I no longer own the right to sell that book, or do you know how does that work?
So again, first, going back to the copyright, you have to copyright your book.
It's copyrighted.
Okay, so you got your copyright, so you own the right. So next step is the document that they sent you or the contract
Mm-hmm.
that has to be interpreted so that you will know what rights you're giving them. Now,
Okay.
you're probably giving them, which is okay, rights to distribute because they want to distribute the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rights to the story. Now, if you give them rights to the story and they change it, you've given them the rights. Like so, and that happens a lot with authors and movies. So, for example, The Color Purple. Color Purple, the book is different than the movie. All of the roots, all of those movies are a little bit different than the movie. Those authors gave the rights over to that industry, that producer, the storyline. So they were able to change that story in the way that they saw it fit for a movie. So you have to be okay with that.
Okay.
Um, the other part is there's other layers to those rights. Now, if they create a movie or they create a mini series, that's something that you want to control because now if you give them the rights to the movie and it hits and they
Mm-hmm.
want to create a mini series, you didn't sign off on that. You signed off on the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just want to make sure that you protect yourself. You want to make sure that you are getting compensated for everything because it's your story. And depending on how much control you want to have over the story. So if you're okay, like, hey, you know what? I'll sell you this story. You make it a movie.
Mm-hmm.
However, I want to know if what changes you make and how it's going to affect my book. Like you can have those kind of conversations. However, you need a legal representative to assist you with that language. Unless you are, you're an attorney and you know that language, you can interpret it and you know exactly what you're signing off on.
Right. I'm glad you said that. Um, because what if it hits real big? And
Exactly.
at what point do they discontinue providing funds to me?
Right.
So, yeah, legal advice
For
would
sure.
probably be the right way to go.
Yes. Don't sign anything. Usually an attorney, you can ask them to take a look at something and oftentimes they may not even charge you, but they
Mm-hmm.
will charge you if they feel like this has got some funny language in here and they need to have a meeting with you about it. Then they'll charge you for that time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely it's unfortunate, but people, they're crooks out there and they're looking to capitalize on people that don't know that will sign off on something very quick. A good example is look at all of the um, entertainers back in our day. And I say our day, I'm from the, 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Look
Mm-hmm.
at all those entertainers that are now broke because
Right.
they wrote music, they sang music, they performed, but they signed contracts that weren't in their best interest. They were in the producer or the record company's best interest. And now they're broke, because they were misguided. And so the same types of principles applies to authors. This is your writing content. You're looking to make money. This is your investment, your product. And so definitely an attorney, um, any legal representative that understands legal language
Mhm.
will be helpful for sure.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Sure, sure. It happens a lot. I had a client who, she's an author. It wasn't a movie or anything like that. She pretty much gave her rights to a publisher without any contract because that publisher published a book for her church. And
Mm,
so they use the church for that purpose. You
mhm.
gotta one, get your book off of Amazon because it was on Amazon.
Right.
And so she pretty much now,
Wow.
long story short, if that happens, what do you do? What you can do, and this is what I advised her to do, is add a subtitle to that book. Maybe change, you can still have that book or add part two or whatever, this season, even if your book has the same name, if you change the subtitle, it's technically a new book.
Mhm.
So if someone does that, just remember that you can tweak that book a little bit and just re-upload it as your own. Now, a lot of times I think that, with self-publishing, it is a lot of work. I'm a self-published author, and doing everything yourself, you do have more control, but it does take time. It's a lot of work. And so I would just say that you have to weigh that out. You have to determine what your budget is, your plan for your book, and how far you want to take this journey. And so, are there any other questions? No?
I don't have questions, but just thank you. It was very clear information, and it was really good information. So thank you, Paulette, for
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome. April, how about you? Anything you want to mention or say, or what do you think about all this?
Different areas of doing your own book, what's better for you,
Yeah.
either the self-publishing or going to a publisher,
Yeah.
and the risk you take in both.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it was very interesting to know.
Next month, we're gonna go in, dive in a little bit deeper into what branding looks like, marketing, and and just look at the differences of marketing campaigns, how you can promote your own book with marketing campaigns, which publishing houses to use to get your books in multiple stores. And so, thank you all for joining me today in this presentation. This is great. This is one of many that we're going to have every month. So I look forward to meeting with you all. I'll be sending you again a PDF of what we discussed today. And we're going to go ahead and sign off. So thank you.